Awesome. Yeah, thank you for the introduction, and thank you to everyone who's here and will eventually listen to this. So, yeah, let's get started. All right, so where last week I spoke a lot about fear and the emotions, moving through the emotions, what it means, and then of course I gave a few general lifestyle and natural medicine tips. This time I decided to really break it up and hone in on, of course, coming from the big picture and then moving downwards into how do you even start and where do you start in what you can even do on this day to day, as our world at this point is changing so much. Hence, finding comfort in chaos. All right. So some of the update about the virus, to be honest, I watch the news, but I catch snippets. I also pay attention a lot to, of course, what's going on in discussion between my colleagues and other doctors. And the concern and the issue with this virus is that, yes, the COVID strain has been around for well over 20 years, but this particular strain, it can be 1,000 times more potent and even contractable than SARS, which we saw, a number of years ago. And also now they're starting to understand more of the pathology of it, like how it could appear on blood work, and it can look like HIV and cancer. So all these additional questions and thoughts are being brought up, especially now as even ER docs are realizing that ventilators aren't always working and neither are respirators. However, what has seemed to be working so far is when hospitals do employ IV vitamin C and many other therapies as well, even discussed throughout my profession, of truly getting back to nature, making sure you get a good night's sleep, drinking enough water, all the things that we're going to go over shortly. So while we know how contagious the virus is, which is why we're now all being urged to wear masks and gloves, especially if we're out in public, to really stay home and stay indoors as much as possible, social distancing and all of that, fear is also contagious, which it's not that it's a bad thing to watch the news, but if it's at the point where you literally can't turn off the TV, it's starting to inhibit, maybe calling that friend that you've been meaning to, or meal times, or basic care and treatment to yourself, then that's certainly something to watch out for. The other piece is that we can also have a lot of people around us, whether it's through social media, text message, through a phone call, and someone doesn't feel good about what's going on, chances are we could pick that up. And if we're not feeling fantastic, then that may be an actual spiral as well. And it's not that we're not allowed to have fear. It's good to have the emotion to understand and really take, that time out of what's going on underneath. But another sense of, oh my God, having that fear and then watching it magnify. So while we are trying to sort through all these facts, not only what we're seeing on TV, but at the same time, there's also another sense which can certainly be questioned, because even doctors are coming on saying, we don't even know the whole picture yet. In fact, everything we're learning is also in hindsight. We have a lot of history of pandemics to help us out, but at the end of the day, even we're still taking it day by day. This virus is also unpredictable. And then once again, in the big picture, let's all just take a deep breath. Okay. Fear can also stand for face everything and rise. And that's the thing. We can do anything. We can either see the limitations of being at home and not being around people, especially if we're not always able to connect or even just don't feel like it, or we can also say, hey, we are at home. What can we do? What have we always wanted to do? You know, the old joke, who or what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, the truth is, as humans, we're always evolving. It's not mitigating what's going on in the world if you do decide to choose, yeah, what do I want to do with my life moving forward? Am I truly living in the best way possible? And even the people in your life. I personally see this a lot in practice, that when people do change their life and their habits, maybe all of a sudden who they used to go out with all the time, that new crowd turns into the new crowd that they see at the gym that maybe they wouldn't have expected. So when you do have those inner changes, that can certainly change who's going to help, really, help you evolve. And there's another saying is that we're the average of the 5 people that we hang around with. Well, of course, now you could also say we're the average of the 5 people that we choose to connect with, considering everything that's going on. And how do you treat yourself and even talk to yourself on the day-to-day? Because just as we may converse with others and help others through their stuff, are we also able to turn that love and turn it into us, where we could help calm ourselves down and bring that type of presence of how can we help better the world? What can we give right now? Even if it is knowing someone is completely freaking out or going through a hard time or just seems on edge, and we can give them a call to say, hey, I'm thinking about you. Or there's always really some funny videos on YouTube, or of course nothing beats the funny animal picture or video. And then how are you creating balance and presence in your life? And that's really important, and exactly what's happening now. Because on the flip side, we've never seen the world literally at a standstill. And our lives in many ways have been disrupted, whether we went to a different location before, potential cases erupted in an area, whether we were so used to networking and now everything is online. And then, of course, being in the house most of the day while literally being told not to go outside or only for essentials. Maybe you're at home with the kids. Maybe there's relatives or older relatives that you're thinking about. And while there can be so much going on, it's also how we handle it. So having that time to really step back, even if it's like 10 to 15 minutes a day, and say, hey, what do I really need in my life? So I can also then assess what's serving me and what's not. And serving you in the sense of promoting a really good sense of well-being and clear thinking, where you can actually develop a strategy, put it to use, and feel accomplished. Or what's not serving you into where you're going into all the what ifs and spiraling and realizing a half hour later there's no solution, and now you're more nervous than ever. So really taking that time for yourself is just as important with everything going on. And the more you have that solid sense of who you are, what you're doing into each present moment, what this future is going to like, because like with anything, whenever we change up something, it's rarely ever going to come back in the same way. So that's truly something to consider as well. And when I say the word coping, putting that into quotes, it doesn't just have to be trudging around day to day, but a lot of the times, even think of the terminology of, which I realized yesterday, was you could ask someone how they're doing, but that's also a doing. Consider asking someone how they're feeling. What's going through their head? What do they need help with? How is their day to day? Do they need someone to bounce some ideas off of? Because these are all great ways that we truly can come together and help each other through these times. So where do you start? because as much as we can sit back and think, well, at the same time, we don't always want to get lost in that piece. Yet we'll see all this stuff to boost our immune system. Then there's our own health goals. Then there's all these exercise videos and foods to eat, when sometimes we can just get into that emotional state where all we just want is a pint of ice cream. And we can be inundated with a lot, and really being able to break it down is going to be just as important as well. So let's start with the mind, because as we know, we are so full of capacity as humans. There's a mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical part to all of us. And even as I liken it to many of the general concerns, especially what I see in practice, like thyroid and weight, hormones, these are all concerns that move through many different organ systems, organs that will both make and metabolize many of the metabolites needed for proper function. So even just knowing that we're working with more than one pathway and certainly more than one organ is already clues to say, hey, there's more to being human than just going. So if you're feeling scattered, any kind of anxiety, just that, or it doesn't even have to be to one extreme or the other, but just out of sorts, just start asking yourself, well, this is okay, this is an emotion. How can I move through this? What do I need to know right now? What do I need to come face to face with? Because sometimes the answer isn't always what we want to hear, but it's going to be the answer that can actually provide some of the best clarity and potentially the solution that can soon free your mind of whatever's going on. So I do encourage you to let your thoughts wander. There is a joke that if you want to consult the expert, you can totally talk to yourself, because who else is a better expert on us than us? Writing is another wonderful way. So fun fact, when we do write, the connection from our hand up to our brain can actually help information go in slightly differently, that you may then be able to draw that conclusion that you needed, or that solution that you've probably been focusing on, just wondering, why hasn't this come up yet? I'm sure we've all had those moments. Taking deep breaths. So when we are feeling out of sorts or just not right, literally deep breaths. The fun fact with that is there's a nerve that connects to our diaphragm called the vagus nerve, and that's the big ruler of our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest. Versus if we're always on the go or our mind always going, that's the sympathetic nervous system, or our fight or flight. So taking even 3 really deep breaths, like in for 4, hold for 1, out for 8, can truly help calm our mind in this time, or to get the answers we need, or maybe how we should be scheduling our day differently. Whatever's coming up for us, some deep breaths can really help provide those answers. And of course, you could always give yourself a little more self-care and take that warm bath, which will literally help calm us down and center us, considering we literally grew in water, but the amniotic fluid. So really going back to evolution. And time for yourself. So use this time to really get to know yourself, what you want to do in your life, where you've overcome things before, and know that this is no different. It requires the same type of strength and perseverance and presence, just like I'm sure you've done before. And having those self-care routines, which can look different for everyone. And, so same thing with hobbies. One of the other best pieces of advice that has worked really well for people is to batch your schedule. So this is where, as you're going about your day, being mindful of what activities serve you well, what may not, what self-care really resonates with you. Because you know what? A warm bath could be the best idea for someone and then be the not so best idea for someone else, and maybe they choose something different, and that's totally fine. However, batching your schedule, consider the next question: what's the best or worst time of day for exercise, meeting with people, time for yourself? And it's through those questions, maybe I know with some people, they love working out the moment they wake up in the morning. Like that's how they need to start their day. So now you have that mindfulness of mornings being the best time for working out, which means then we tend to be sharper in the morning. So maybe having meetings then, or some people are sharper in the afternoon. In other words, what activities do you really like or sometimes have to do? And what's the best time of day, or rather the time of day that you're going to be most efficient and truly present with that, with that activity? And if you're not sure, well, that's part of life, is we get to experiment. So try out a schedule for a week, see how you feel, and maybe you need to move a few things around. But what better way than to truly learn so much about yourself than, especially in this time. Coming into how we treat our body, I personally don't subscribe to any particular diet, but in working with people, I always encourage, how can you best listen to your body? So I always recommend at least a half a plate of vegetables, especially those dark leafy greens and cruciferous. So think broccoli, kale, collards, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, because those are so nutrient packed or nutrient dense rather, and they can work wonders. They're great for hormone balance, weight, reducing inflammation, boosting your immune system, all of our detoxification systems, sleep, energy, mood. There are so many wonderful benefits, and as we know, food can be such a great form of medicine. So while you have your vegetables, then about a quarter of your plate of protein. You could either do vegetarian or non-vegetarian, depending on your own preference. Or there are times I also know meat eaters who sometimes just have one day of doing vegetarian. That works for them. And so what protein does is it also helps level out all those craving responses. So it really helps keep both our blood sugar and energy levels pretty stable, so it doesn't feel like we're so up and down. The other quarter of our plate is great for fats. And of course, it doesn't always have to be divided, because let's say if you use olive oil on a salad, or avocado is great. If you're cooking with coconut oil, that certainly counts. So to have those healthy fats in there is a great way to also stabilize your hunger levels, mitigate cravings, and really have that energy lasting throughout, at least the next number of hours. So I recommend, considering protein is so important and it's very grounding, it's also really good for our adrenals, which are the two glands that sit on top of our kidneys, responsible for hormones, our stress response, and just overall blood pressure and energy. So about 50 grams a day, and starting with 10 to 20 grams of protein at breakfast. And that can look like 2 eggs, a scoop of protein powder. I do recommend like a vegan brand, because I do find that whey tends to be tougher on people's systems. It could be a few, like 2-3 slices of turkey bacon. So there's all these different ways that you can really incorporate it at breakfast, or like dinner for breakfast. And then that's the start to your day. So think something very grounding, and then really taking that time for yourself of, how do you want to approach the day? What mindset are you in? Because the morning, right when we wake up, is one of our most lucid, clear times. where we can kind of do a play-by-play in our head of that batch time of what activities we'll be doing versus trying to schedule everything minute by minute. Intermittent fasting is also one of my other favorite tips for advice, and that's really good for the immune system, especially now. So while our body, it's great to have, be in that parasympathetic rest and digest, it's also really good to give our digestive system a break. So at minimum 12 hours, but I also say 12 to 15 because most people are doing 12 hours without even realizing it. Going into that 14 or 15, generally speaking, men handle it a little bit better than women, but certainly a couple of days a week you can work up to it, and you may actually feel a little better. Maybe one day you do find yourself at 15 and another day you go back to 12, and know that that's okay because it's also listening to your body. But you're also giving your digestive system a rest, which means you can divert resources into repairing, boosting your immune system, reducing inflammation, and all those vital processes. The other way to do that is to have at least 3 to 4 hours between meals. So many times, if we're hungry an hour later or 2 hours later, have we had enough vegetables? Have we drank enough water? Did we get enough whole foods and fiber? Get enough protein and fats? So these are all the bigger questions because generally speaking, in a meal, we should be able to go at least 3 to 4 hours. Or depending on the meal we ate, so this is where, of course, proteins and fats come in, is that will help us go to those 3 to 4 hours versus simple carbohydrates or general sugars that tend to, really spike that response of hunger and then bring it right back down, or called the glycemic index. And when we have those really quick responses, that can also trigger hunger sometimes sooner than we like. The other piece about gut health, which even coming into the 70 ounces of water per day, you could put some apple cider vinegar in there, that's the ACV, and lemon. So especially apple cider vinegar is it's multi-potent, kind of like when coconut oil came out a few years ago, and you find you could use it internally, externally, for skin, for the bacteria in your mouth, for gut health. So apple cider vinegar is similar in that respect of how beneficial it can be. So you can do about a capful in 8 ounces of water, or if you're, let's see, personally I have a water bottle that's about 30 ounces. I'll probably do about 1/8 of a cup of apple cider vinegar in there, just so it's pretty dilute. Because what's the key with the gut health is that's where most of our neurotransmitters are made, which is type of hormones responsible for our mood. It's where estrogen, which is a very common hormone that tends to be high in both men and women. And of course, in balance, it can make us really happy because it looks like serotonin, which is our happy hormone. But out of balance, it can also contribute to any anxiety, depression, weight gain, poor sleep, thyroid issues, and so forth. And there's a part of our gut bacteria that does help metabolize estrogen. In addition, most of our immune system is also made in our gut. So really, coming into the time that you have for yourself, nourishing your body in the best ways for you is all setting up the foundation where, of course, it's not just helping with everything that's going on, but it's also letting you have the clarity that you need on this day-to-day, moment by moment, and staying present. And of course, with everything, there's exercise. So what other way to help make us feel good, get into that zone? And this is where listening to your body is really important as well. There are some days maybe you want to dance around the house. I will say that YouTube also has wonderful free, pretty much any kind of dance, yoga, at-home workouts, and play around with them. Just like, as I mentioned, in that batch scheduling of maybe times you want to exercise, maybe put in a few types of, whether it's upper body, lower body, HIIT, which I love, high intensity interval training, is really great for adding strength with cardio, but in such a way that it really helps get those muscles and endorphins going. And then maybe another day you're feeling yoga. And know that all of these are just so important to our overall health and do serve a purpose and can keep you in line with your health goals. In regards to supplements, I did keep it pretty simple, because even just having a type of presence, learning how to move through our fear, ways to de-stress, that all takes effort, and that's all part of the foundation. And and of course, even how you nourish yourself. So those supplements, well, that's what they are. They are to supplement everything that you're doing. So magnesium, known as nature's relaxer, it's involved in over 500 reactions in the human body. So you can get this in pill, powder, Epsom salt baths is a great way, should you be someone who enjoys baths. I think it's like a quarter cup of Epsom salts, but please do double check on that. Vitamin D, I'd recommend getting your levels tested first, but generally speaking, especially if you are in a cooler part of the world, and especially now being inside, you'll be pretty safe with about 2,000 IUs per day. And same thing, vitamin D is actually more than just a vitamin, but also a hormone, and it could even help with hormone balance. Vitamin C, as you heard me mention earlier, we're now in hospitals, they're using IV vitamin C. Vitamin C is incredibly potent and multifaceted. It can help with muscle repair, especially as, if you are finding yourself doing more exercise than usual. It can help with our immune system, overall just anti-inflammatory. It helps with blood sugar and cravings. It helps with hormones. It's really very multifaceted, and even sometimes I'll even recommend on a day-to-day. Dosage-wise, I think even now we can do about 4 to 5 grams. But if you like, especially if you're doing a lot of this, you can certainly start off with 2 or 3 grams and get good benefits. Hawthorn, you'll either find it in a store, online, of course. It's, not always talked about, but it's actually one of my favorite herbs, and it acts just to help literally calm us down. But what's great is that it also helps nourish the heart, which is also our emotions. It's what we feel. It's leading from the heart. So it really helps us get out of our head and into really listening to that intuition and what we want to do and what makes us happy. I also put lavender pillow in parentheses. Sometimes people really like the smell of it. Sometimes, others don't. So I leave it there as an option, because at the same time, I'm also wary of what are things you can have at home on the day-to-day, and how much do you really want to go ordering offline as well? Because once again, this isn't to overwhelm. This is just to say, hey, look, it's getting to those basics and that foundation first. So that's it. All right. And with part of that foundation is also the spiritual side to ourself, which, as I mentioned, is going to filter in through everything that we're doing. Meditation, the benefits there is that you may get that answer you were looking for, whether it's, where do I even start batching my time? When is my energy good? What is the hobby I've always wanted to do? And as I said, talk to yourself. You're the expert. Then there's being in flow and being in alignment, being present. So what that means is that you're not on a time schedule. You can just let yourself think freely, write it out, talk to yourself, being in the moment in a place where you feel really good. maybe you're working through something and it may not feel super hot, but deep down you know that, yeah, this is what I need to do because I know that when I come out of this, I'm going to feel really good. So that's what being in alignment is. It's accepting that moment by moment that you also know and have all the answers you need, and you also have the trust and the faith in yourself that you will know where to go to have those answers. And maybe you'll even get creative in that process as well. So creativity, self-expression. Chakras are, as you'll see in the picture here, these are different energy systems. They were even discovered in India in, I think it was 1000 BC. So a very long time, a couple of millennia ago. And these were found to be correlated to various concerns on the physical level, but also the emotional level. So as you'll see, what we know, especially from the Western side of things, there are 8 different chakras. There are actually many more, but this is typically what's referred to when we look at how are these different energies flowing throughout our body. So from the root, which is right at the base, you think the root, that's who we are, coming into the sacral chakra, which is, well, as you've heard me mention before, those adrenals, those reproductive organs. So especially, coming into hormones, weight, a lot of what I do talk about is how do we find that balance, getting to, is our core and basic needs met, and then coming into, now how do we get creative with them? That solar plexus, that yellow light, is all about, and how do we share it with the world, coming into our power and our self-expression. The green is our heart, so that's the love for ourselves, the love for others, being in flow, having the respect for ourselves. Our throat, which is very much around any kind of thyroid concerns, is our self-expression, but not just throwing out our expression, but how do we also receive and communicate and listen? And there are times when we don't always feel fantastic. That part can get compromised. And especially moving upwards, to right in the middle of our forehead, our third eye, our intuition, our belief, and our belief in ourself. And right on top of our head is our crown chakra. Are we able to understand what we need to do in the world? Are we aligned? Are we trusting? Having that sense of self-worth. And ultimately, it's everything working together. And let's say even going back to, eating all those veggies, like think the green ones to nourish the heart, but having those rainbow of whole foods, you're also nourishing all those energy centers. And with further guidance, and I know that this is a lot of information as well, so you can certainly listen to this recording, as many times as you need. One of the last pieces I'll provide to you guys is to talk about astrology. So as I've learned as well, like as doctors, we know the Hippocratic Oath, but Hippocrates had to know astrology. They control the pressures in the universe, and with 70% of our body being liquid, well, that can also affect how our organs function. So one of the things that can help tell us, are we repeating the same cycles, in that sometimes in that place of, are things ever going to get better? Am I ever going to find relief? If you ever find yourself asking these questions, you only need to know your birthday, and you can Google nodes in astrology and see where you fit. Where your south node is a lot of what you'll need to overcome in your life, and your north node is the power and the characteristics that you are more than capable of fully stepping into. So that way, when you do have that presence and you are able to, in that meditation or that time to yourself, and ask yourself, where can I further show up in the world? Where can I further embrace all that I want to do? And am I in alignment? Because also much of how we grow up, we know there are countless studies done where even has been carried on through the generations. So that means whatever we were told by our family, there's also been pain throughout our lineage, even spanning 3 to 4 plus generations that we've also inherited. So if we are feeling that inability to break through, bringing me to the last point of forgiveness, because it's not just you, it's generations behind you. It's everyone doing their best with what they were given at that time. And knowing that it's everything in your past that's also brought you to this wonderful point of where you are right now. Because the truth is, everything we've done in our life and our past has brought us to where we are. And I'm sure there were happy moments and things to be grateful for. So having that gratitude, cultivating those people in your life. So in summing everything up, you can create so much. And knowing that the healing journey is not always linear, and there's a lot of things we're going to want to try, and know that there will always be time for everything. You've evolved before, and you can clearly evolve now. And just like how we can't understand space without something there, we do need dichotomy to understand all that we have. And then at the same time, let's also think about who we want to continue to evolve into. So on that note, here's where you can contact me. I have my website, my email, my number. I also provide a lot of information on social media and, videos, posts, and all that. So you're welcome to follow me there. And yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Serena. That was really great. A lot of information in there. So the first question, and let me remind everyone, if you have a question, you can email info@savvyladies.org, or you can use the chat box now. And so the first question we have for you is saying that my work culture and environment are absolutely reactive. It's the nature of our industry, but it's extremely heightened these last few weeks, and I'm feeling burnt out. What can I do?
Of course, yeah, great question. If you even have at least 15 minutes a day, I recommend you could even start with, let's say, chakra guided meditations, or a focus guided meditation. To start with at least 15 minutes a day that you can carve out for yourself, and just start getting that feeling of, what does it mean to be in your body? What does it mean to be present? Because that's a lot of what meditation does, is it cultivates that feeling of presence. Because it's true, we can also get a sense of a lot of energy, especially if things are heightened, in work and when there's a lot of people around. But if you're starting to cultivate that sense of presence, then you can bring that sense of presence, which means you'll also have the boundaries in realizing, oh wait, this is where I'm starting to understand where my feelings are heightened. Let me go back to that very present place. Because the meditating, that's the practice, while life is the test, so to speak. So that's also another way to look at it is, as you do start meditating and having that calmness, what would it look like to bring that to a meeting? What would it be like to just listen to the words without all the emotion? And as you begin to cultivate that, that's also a great way to not give so much energy to this point that you are feeling really burnt out. And then, of course, that's where hobbies come in as well. So, it can really help bring that energy back.
Okay, thank you. And the next question we have for you is saying, I've heard a lot about intermittent fasting for health and weight purposes. I was interested to hear about the benefits you mentioned today, but I'm wondering if there are any warnings I should know about during these stressful times.
Yeah, of course. And that's why I say like those are the very basic places to start, because a lot of people find that they are even doing the quote unquote minimum 12 hours. When I caution against intermittent fasting, that's, if let's say someone is, when they're in such what's so-called adrenal fatigue, when they are just so tired, they can't get out of bed in the morning. They don't have energy. Of course, the other, scenarios is if someone's really sick. Pregnant women is another one. But in these times, of course, with higher stress and, anything to be concerned about, I would say for your generally healthy person, you should be okay. But that said, once again, if you really do feel like eating, because sometimes we can think, okay, well, today I'm going to intermittent fast, and today I'm going to set myself up for these hours. But if you're starving a half hour or even a few hours before, do listen to your body and eat something, because it does take some time to adapt. And that's where I give the range of 12 to 15, so you can play around with it. As I said, most people find that they do okay with 12 hours, but once again, sometimes it happens and it's only 10 hours. And it's knowing that you'll be okay, your body will tell you what it needs. Sometimes it really does need 15 hours. Sometimes it may need a little more, or you'll be ready for a little more. But once again, that's where I give the basics, because at the end of the day, if we do deprive our body, it will also, that's where, of course, like the crash dieting and all of that comes in. That can really tank our thyroid and hormones and, well, our overall metabolism. So it's going to one extreme or the other.
Okay, thank you. Another question for you is saying that I get very anxious when I think about my family members getting the virus. I'm afraid to let my thoughts wander too far when it comes to that. But do you recommend I do this anyway?
Yes, I do. And actually, one of the first things I thought about is maybe give them a call, see, or, see if they're on social media, see what they're up to. And that's where I believe that letting your thoughts wander, it's not so much the worst case scenario in agony per se, but it's, if there is that fear and worry, what is it about? Do you feel connected with them? Do you feel separated from them? Do you, what's the relationship with them? And that, yeah, and so that's where I would say to explore, because once again, it's not so much about envisioning the worst case scenario, but letting yourself go there and then being able to say, all right, what is this also trying to tell me? What can I do next? So that's where I say, maybe it's reaching out, maybe it's making sure that they have what they need, because we can only control so much. And some of that is the letting go piece as well. But knowing that at least at this present time, are they okay? Do they have what they need? What are these underlying emotions really getting at, to something that either I can ease within myself or a viable solution?
Okay, great. And Dr. Serena, this is the last question for you, which is asking if you do one-on-one weight consultations.
I do. If you go to my website, I do offer complimentary 30-minute phone calls where we can certainly chat, and you can let me know what's going on. You'll see I have my website in the first bullet point. So yeah, I would be happy to chat. And I do work one-on-one virtually, well, especially now. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
Okay, great. And for anyone on the phone, Dr. Serena's website is drserenagoldstein.com, and we will be sharing this information with everyone in an email. So I want to thank you, Dr. Serena, for a really great presentation, especially during these tough times. Thanks for talking to us through everything. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today, asking questions, and we hope that everyone stays safe and healthy.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.